Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, welcome. We'll be getting started in about 4 minutes. Is that Krishna Balaram that's over in Mayapur? Welcome, Sukada. Would you care to unmute and tell us where you're from? Go ahead. Krishna Balaram, is that the Krishna Balaram in Mayapur from Alachua?
Yes, Prabhu.
Oh, welcome. Hare Krishna, glad you could make it. And Sukada, where are you from? Okay. Hare Krishna, Arjuna, Acharya,
Hare Krishna,
TJ.
Vaninath.
Hare Krishna.
Pranams.
Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Good. Glad you could make it. Welcome, iPhone. My good friend iPhone and Dineshwar Prabhu, our speaker is here. So we're thumbs up. We're going to be ready to get started here in about 3 minutes time. Glad you're here.
Nice to see everybody.
Hare Krishna. We have an international crowd all the way from Mayapur, Manipur, South Africa.
Wonderful.
And Northwest U.S. and some
You
other
got a long
places
reach,
as well.
Vaninath.
As well as some locals, and we never did hear from Sukada where they are from.
Hey, wonderful.
Yes. So it's quite wonderful that the message of Varnashrama is the interest is international all over, and we have intentions to capitalize on that international interest. I'm hoping to be speaking with different persons. I have a conversation waiting with Junacharya in regards to that international, the international fact of global interest in Varnashrams. We're quite excited. So we're very hopeful, very hopeful. So
Somebody has kirtan playing in the background.
Yes, I will be stopping that just momentarily, just right at 7 p.m. And so that'll be finished, and then we'll get started. Yes. So that won't be continuing to play. So I don't want you to any anxiety in regards to that. Welcome, Mother Revati. Hare Krishna.
So thank you for everybody who's showing us your smiling face.
Yeah.
It's nice to have faces to talk to because otherwise it's rather impersonal. Like, what if I just gave class like that, you know?
Yes.
My icon can speak to your icon.
Yeah.
I don't even have a picture on mine.
Oh.
But it's late. It's been a long day for me with my husband's stuff, and
Oh yes, I hope he's recovering.
he seems to be. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
Best wishes to him.
Yeah, my prayers for that and so forth. So please, okay, ladies and gentlemen. And let me turn it off here. There. Okay, we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank all of you for kindly giving your time and attention to this program about Varnashram, and the topic of Varnashram, which is very dear to Srila Prabhupada. So first, I'd like to offer my obeisances. Vanchakapatri Vishcha. Namo Namaha. And once again, thank you so much for your kind attention tonight. We, from time to time, have these programs to both to expand the conversation about Varnashram and to hopefully illustrate the many different facets of Varnashram. So tonight we're honored to have a speaker that's going to look at one of these facets, which is also very important around economy in regards to Varnashram. So, and once again, my name is Vaninath Vasu Dasa, for those of you who don't know me and I don't know you. And I'll introduce our speaker tonight, Dineshwar Das Goswami. He is a Vaishnava guru, international speaker, social economist, and author. He is a direct disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and has been a sadhaka of Gaudiya Vaishnavism for more than 50 years. He also holds an MS degree from the University of Florida. Your MS degree is in economics?
Engineering.
Engineering.
No, if I had a degree in economics, I wouldn't be able to write about this.
Okay. I also studied engineering, chemical engineering at the University of Florida. But moving on, Goswami has had many responsible positions within ISKCON and has traveled to more than 30 countries, speaking both in ISKCON and private venues, teaching Krishna consciousness, spiritual economics.
You said you were taking a nap. I was getting worried. You never take a nap this late.
Didn't I tell you I was going to this meeting?
Okay. So I'll start there again. Goswami has held many responsible positions within ISKCON and has traveled to more than 30 countries, speaking both in ISKCON and private venues, teaching Krishna consciousness, spiritual economics, and the urgency of shifting from today's damaging paradigm that inflicts poverty, scarcity, suffering, and misery on billions to the eternal system of Sanatana Dharma. He is the author of Spiritual Economics from the Bhagavad Gita, Divine or Demonic, and Change the Karma. His blog is How Then Shall We Live.substack.com. He also posts on YouTube as Dineshwar Das, and his websites are spiritualrevolution.global, divineordemoniac.com, and spiritual-economics.com. So with that, and also I'd like to say, when I joined here in Gainesville, Dineshwar Prabhu Maharaj was here also, and was kindly kept me engaged. I think you were temple commander at that point when I joined. And yes, he'd always, get this person, this wayward person that I was, and still am, and get him engaged. And so I appreciate that. So you say 50 years, I was looking at that, gosh, time has flown. So it is that 50 years, yes. So with that, I would like to then turn the floor over to you and have you enlighten us in some areas of economics in regards to Varnashram. I'll need you, ask you to, you'll see.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Vaninath, for inviting me to speak. I'm very happy to present this important topic. And thank you to all of you who have come today to share this. It's extremely important because, as we know, economics touches every aspect of our lives, and certainly it does so within the social economic system of Varnashram Dharma. So just let me get a little idea of your background. If you have read my book, either raise your hand or your electronic hand so I can get an idea. Spiritual economics, anybody? One? Okay, thank you. That book, too, we've probably sold around 5,000 copies of that book, and mostly to devotees. And of course, because I was preaching over in Europe, a lot of those books went out in Europe and in India, Russia. Actually, the book's been translated into 5 languages. So wherever I was traveling and preaching, devotees were very, very impressed with the book because it, as one devotee said, reading this book has made me want to live a very natural way of life, simple living and high thinking. And so I'm very happy to have that, what do you call it? Testimonial. Okay, so it's important for us to begin with giving some background about economics, and because this is a subject that most people do not pay much attention to beyond their own checkbook. If they have enough money in the bank, the economic problem is okay, and if they don't, well, then there's an economic problem. It's not just my economic problem, there's an economic problem. So that's the way it goes, because this world is too complex for us to consider much more beyond that. I'll give you a little insight in the segue of my taking up economics. As I mentioned, I was my master's degree is in engineering, and I never thought about economics at all when I was young devotee. But in 1977, I was living at the Gitanagari farm in Pennsylvania, and I had a problem with some arthritis, and I was a bit crippled. And so I was a treasurer, and I did things that didn't require much activity. So at the farm, we had, it was the New York farm, and to develop the farm, the New York devotees were sending $10,000 a month to the farm to develop it. We had a herd of about 30 brown Swiss, beautiful, gorgeous cows, giving hundreds of gallons of milk every day. That milk was being sold to a commercial dairy. There was also, at that time, about 20 oxen that were not very much engaged. I think there was 2, maybe 3 men who were engaged with working the oxen. And so besides being the treasurer, my job was to, or rather one of my services was to go into Harrisburg weekly or bi-weekly and buy boga for the devotees. And so there's a fairly large number, maybe there's about 40 devotees there because there was also the school there at that time. So I'm looking around at this situation, and I'm of course, I'm reading Prabhupada's books about Varnashrama, and as I study this situation there, I'm going, this is not what Prabhupada had in mind when he's talking about Varnashrama, and particularly the economics of it. And so from that time, I took up an interest in in economics to try to understand more about how economics is supposed to work to serve the people and so on. And that subject is a very dark well, the way it's practiced today. But anyway, that was my segue into this. Over the years, I've written quite a bit about Varnashrama. Vaninath was kind enough, he sent out that article that I wrote back in 2010, Becoming Wealthy on $2 a Day. Perhaps some of you have read that, and if you haven't, please do, because it also gives some insight into the cultural, the way in which money is understood in cultural terms, which is very significant because different people, in different cultures, they consider economics in different ways. and it means different things to different people. So, okay, so let's a little bit more history then about economics. When a lot of people, they think that money is just, of course, today it's everywhere, ubiquitous, and nobody can imagine living without money. But there was a time when money did not exist. And the first culture that created money, anybody want to guess? No, okay. It was the Greeks, the Yavanas. The Yavanas, the Greek culture, I think their culture went from about 800 BC to 140 BC, something like that. And so they were the first ones to come up with money in the way that we know it, money for trade, with a stamp of government seal on it to authenticate its assay or its value. So the Greeks came up with that, and the first money in India, money was not invented in India, but the first money that has been found in India is Greek coins dated around 600 BC. Prior to that time, there was nothing that could be considered money. In the sense that we know it. Okay, let me put it that way. Now, so of course, the early money was silver and gold, and so as from the Greeks, and especially with the Romans, the Roman defeated the Greeks. They also had a system of money. And they had a very large empire, much greater than the Greek Empire. And so money spread all throughout the Western world at that time. And every civilization since the Greeks has, let's say, every Western civilization since the Greeks have used money in terms of gold or silver coinage. Now, the downside of that is every one of these cultures have failed due to debasing their currency. That is, they would, in order to try to get something for nothing, they would alloy their gold or silver with nickel or some other base metal, and this way inflate their currency. And when they did that, after a short period of time, when the money becomes inflated, people stop thinking about tomorrow. They simply live for today, because whatever money you're going to get today is not going to have any value tomorrow. So spend it now. And so therefore nobody thinks about the future, and the civilization collapses. The longest standing empire in Western civilization was the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantines, they went from about 330 AD to Middle Ages, 1530, around 1500 AD. And the reason for this more than 1,000 years reign is due to the fact that they did not debase their currency. They kept their coinage pure, and it became the standard everywhere in the Western world. Everybody knew that it was pure. But of course, this is Kali Yuga, and the cheating propensity is there. And so after 1,000 years, they also debased their currency, and within 200 years of doing that, the Byzantine Empire also collapsed. So this is the standard for Western civilization. Now, after that, okay, from about a little past the Middle Ages, paper currency started coming into use, and it was generally done as warehouse receipts, but then gradually came more into use. And for the United States, since I'm American, I know this history here more than other countries, but probably the same most places. In the United States, the US dollar used to be backed by gold. That is, the paper dollar could be taken into a bank and exchanged for equal value of gold. That was until 1971 or 72. Nixon took us off the gold standard. So that, because why? Because we ran out of gold, right? We wanted to print more money than we had gold. And so we were taken off the gold standard so we could expand the cheating propensity unlimitedly. And that's exactly what has happened, right? So since that time, the US dollar has lost, what, in that 50 years, the US dollar has lost 98% of its value. Maybe it's worth 2 cents or 1 cent, what it was worth back at that time. And of course, the consequences of doing this are the same here as they are or were in every other civilization. And any of you who have your ear to the ground, you can understand that this civilization is also in its death throes. Many observers are comparing the present state of the America to the fall of the Roman Empire and the different stages that an empire goes through in its decline, and we're on the way out. So history repeats itself, and for the same reason that the mode of ignorance, tamagun, and the cheating propensity take over, and people try to get something for nothing. And it has the same result every time. So you can't change that. Okay, now, this is why am I talking about this? It's important to understand money and how it works, how it has worked in the past, what its problems are. And even the Bhagavatam in the 11th canto, Sri Prabhupada, this is 11th canto, chapter 3, Sri Prabhupada, he said, wealth is a perpetual source of distress. It is most difficult to acquire, and it is virtual death for the soul. What satisfaction does one actually gain from his wealth? Similarly, how can one gain ultimate or permanent happiness from one's so-called wealth? One's so-called home, children, relatives, and domestic animals are all maintained by one's hard-earned money, but none of them are permanent. So, yes, the Bhagavatam talks about the bad qualities of wealth, and of course, Srila Prabhupada, you may know, speaks on and on about the false ego running on two tracks, aham mameti and aham bhogi, right? I and mine. I am the enjoyer and I am the possessor. I am the owner. So I'm just going to, a few other important things about money, which are the bad qualities. And I apologize for my lighting. I'm staying right now in a travel trailer, and the lighting here is not so good, so not much I can do about that. Sorry. Anyway, so the bad qualities of money. There's a lot of them. Anybody want to guess? Come on, shout some out.
Increases the propensity for material enjoyment,
Yes, good.
enviousness,
Yes,
propensity to cheat,
yes. Come on, somebody else. Okay, I'll read down my list. It separates people. It divides people, right? I've got my money, you've got yours, right? And if you have a problem, that's your problem, right? If I have a problem, it's my problem. So this is creating the nirvishesha shunyavadi that we say in Prabhupada's pranam mantra, right? So Prabhupada is saving the world from nirvishesha shunyavadi, voidism and impersonalism. And one way of resolving that is to find another way to handle our economics besides using money. It's a source of anxiety. If you get it, there's anxiety in getting it, then there's anxiety in protecting it, and there's anxiety if you lose it. It encourages sense gratification, materialism. People become indebted and become slaves or servitude. Then one of the biggest things right now, everything is seen only for its monetary value and having no other intrinsic value. It's for some people, that's all they can think of is in terms of money. What's it worth? Why? Because you can buy it, whatever it is, for that amount of money. It creates an inequality among people. It can be used to manipulate and control others, right? People, we hear so much about politicians these days being bribed, right? And so they're manipulated by being bribed. They all have their weakness, whether it's sex, money, or whatever, and then they are bribed and controlled in that way. It promotes greed. It enables corruption. It fosters materialism. Leads to exploitation of everything and everyone. Actually, all of the environmental problems of the world are economic problems first and foremost. Because how much does it cost to fix the environment? Or why is the environment being degraded? Because nobody wants to pay the extra cost to protect the environment. So they just throw everything into the sea, into the river, into the Ganges, Jamuna, whatever. Let's see. Takes people to hell due to envy and greed, right? We live in a society of envy. But the three gates to hell, lust, envy, and greed. Contributes to environmental harm. I said that. And its value fluctuates. You get your money today, and it's not going to be worth anything tomorrow. To give you an example of that, right? Inflation, talking about inflation, right? Where like you remember, probably you heard the stories of the Weimar Republic after World War I in Europe, in Germany. They had to bring a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. Well, they don't do that in the modern day. They simply add more zeros to the notes. Zimbabwe had a $100 trillion note. So, right? I mean, you can't imagine, right? The value is changing every minute. So the value fluctuates, and it gives a false idea that problems can be solved with money. I was just in the gas station this evening, and the, what do they call it? The lotto, the Powerball, was up to $775 million. Yikes. So some person thinks, oh, that's going to solve all my problems. But there was one fellow, he interviewed all those people who won the lottery, and most of them say they wish they had never won because it destroyed their lives, made them very unhappy. Okay, so that's enough about money, but it's important to know because we're going to come back to this subject in a little bit. So the next thing is, actually now Vaninath, he advertises in his several emails in different ways. Actually, what I want to speak about, the main focus of tonight's presentation is the economics of Varnashrama Dharma. It's a subject that I've studied, and to my knowledge, of the devotees who are seriously studying Varnashrama Dharma, I'm the only one who's taking this segue, or taking this course of study. And it's a very important one because, like we said, it touches every aspect of culture. So let's go back and try to understand what they were doing before. And for that, we have the Krishna book. And you all know the story quite well, I'm sure, that the fruit vendor came one day and asking if anyone wants fruits, come here and get them from me. And child Krishna, having seen his parents exchanging grain in barter for things, he took in his little palm a few grains and he went out there to the vendor. And Prabhupada writes, in those days, exchange was done by barter. So this is typical for most cultures around the world. They will barter. And sometimes they barter. Grain is a useful item to barter with, because it has a constant value for everyone, right? A kilo of wheat or a kilo of rice has the same value for everybody, filling hungry bellies. So it's very good, plus it doesn't decay and can be stored for a long time. But nobody becomes rich by thinking, oh, I've got 2 tons of rice, like I've got $2 trillion or $2 billion of money, okay, you've got, 2 tons of rice. Because it can't be used in the same way. It can't be used to go out and simply splurge in different kinds of sense gratification. So trade in those days was done by barter. Now, there's a very important little book that I would encourage all of you to read if you haven't. This is by Bhaktivedanta Swami, his book, Glimpses of Traditional Indian Life. Anybody read that book? Yes? Okay. Kaliya Prabhu. Very important book. So, to get a glimpse on the culture. So Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, he was, back in the early 70s, he stayed in Bangladesh for about 3 years or 4 years. And so he got to firsthand experience what that culture was like. And it was a subsistence economy. There was no money. And everything was done. Subsistence means hand to mouth. You produced what you needed. And what you could produce for yourself, you would trade rice or grains or whatever you were producing for what you needed. And so this has a very significant impact on the culture, because he writes, there was no sense of I in Bangladesh. There was only our, not my house, our house, not my village, our village, not my work, our work. Everything was done as a group. Everything was shared as a group. And understanding that, if you're part of my group and I'm part of your group, you want me to be the best person that I can be. And I want you to be the best person that you can be, right? If I'm depending on you, I want you to be honest. I want you to be conscientious. I want you to be diligent, right? So you raise each other up in this kind of a subsistence economy. However, if in our money economy, many people, they don't even know the person next door, right? And even if we do know them, if you've got a money problem, okay, if we're close, maybe I'll help you. But if we're not close, good luck, Chuck. You're on your own, right? And so many people fall through the cracks in this modern society. Everybody's divided. Right? I've got my money, you've got your money, and that's it. That's the way it works. I and mine. No we, right? So this is the Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. So that's an important thing to understand. This because people will look at such an economy and they think, oh, this is going backwards, right? We don't want to go backwards, but what are they thinking? They're only looking at it in terms of material facility. The significance of this is that in a money economy, you can have all the intangibles that money can buy. And people have a lot of intangibles. or a lot of tangibles rather, right? You got your computer, your phone, you got your car, you got your house, maybe you got a house, right? So we got a lot of tangibles, but the intangibles that are actually most important to all of us, right? Love, security, friendship, family. We don't have the intangibles. We can't afford the intangibles because the powers that be, they arrange everything to extract everybody's energy to the fullest extent possible, right? We don't have the prerogative of controlling the money, but somebody does. And what do they want? Because they're avaricious, they have all the bad qualities of Kali Yuga. They want to extract as much time and energy from everybody as they can because they don't think anything of others, right? It's only what I can extract from somebody. If you cannot provide wealth for me, you have no value. A throwaway person, no value, right? No intrinsic value just because you're a person. So that's what the result of money economy gets you. Now there's, oh yeah, and so yeah, in the subsistence economy, you've got all of the intangibles, but not so many of the tangibles, right? The intangibles, the things that are important for us, the things that actually make our life fulfilling, that you can have. But you have to forego perhaps the tangibles. So that's in the past. Maybe it can be done differently in the future. We'll see how that goes. But that's a very, very important thing to note, right? What is most important for us as human beings in our lives? The intangibles or the tangibles? Something to think about. Okay, then there's another historical example of almost Varnashram culture. Perhaps it was Varnashram culture. I don't know. There's a woman by the name of, I think she's still alive, Helena Norberg Hodge. She wrote a book called and a movie, The Economics of Happiness. Anybody heard of that or read that? No? Wonderful story. Okay, so great book, great video. You can see the video free online. But she had the privilege of entering into Ladakh, which is Kashmir in northern Pakistan, India. She had the privilege of entering into Ladakh before they admitted foreigners. She went there as a student of culture, and she promised, to just leave her old culture behind and just come there. And so they gave her the privilege to be able to observe them and to document their lives. And they were a subsistence economy. Ladakh, it's elevation probably about 5,000 feet, maybe higher. They get 4 inches of rain a year, so they're very dependent on runoff from the Himalayas to water their crops. So it's a rough life, but these people were happy. Why? Okay. Again, you can if you read my Becoming Wealthy on $2 a Day, you'll get the idea there also. Because they're living in a mode of goodness, sattva gun, right? Sattva gun, their happiness is not dependent upon things. They were naturally happy by living in the mode of goodness. So there's another video that I really would encourage you also to see. It's called Learning from Ladakh. And I think that's the website also, learningfromladakh.com or .org. But this video, Learning from Ladakh, is on YouTube. And what it does is she shows how the people were so happy when they were living a subsistence economy, sattvic lifestyle, and then how that changed when Ladakh started admitting tourists into the country, bringing with them money and a different idea of what of things of value. So the tourists would come in and they would spend more money in a day than the Ladakis might be able to earn in a year. And of course, they're wearing all the fashionable Western things, right? Blue jeans and sunglasses and what have you. And so, of course, the young people, being more inclined to Rajagun, they see all this and they start thinking, oh, yes, that looks very attractive, right? Rajagun, very attractive. So the young people started desiring the things that they couldn't have and they wanted to get them. And so gradually, over not even a long time, over a short time, as not only tourists came in, but the country was opening itself up for imports and so on. So a lot of trade and commerce and things came in that the people formerly were happy not to have anything to do with, right? T-shirts with Rocky on it, or, you know, some crazy thing from America, or, you know, a transistor radio or things like that. And so what happened was she was away for some time, and then she you know, oh, yeah. When she first got there, she asked everybody, they were showing her around, and she saw that everybody had a very nice house, and a house with all the quite spacious, a lot of room. And so then she asked them, please show me where the poor people live. And they looked at her like, what's a poor person? They had no concept of somebody that's poor, right? There was no division, no distinction between rich and poor. They were all doing everything the same. Everybody lived the same culture. And then when she went back after some time of being away, the people, the Ladakis were saying, oh, we're so poor. We need some help from the West because we have poverty. It's not poverty. It's simply culture, right? So this is, again, these are important things to understand. And I hope you will, if you're serious about trying to understand the economics of Varnashram, read that book, watch these videos, because that's what we have to go back to. Right now we're living in a culture of Rajagun, Tamagun. We want to go to a culture of Sattvagun. Varnashram Dharma is a culture of Sattva, right? Because it's what? Taking us to Shuddha Sattva, right? So, and the economics can destroy it. If we don't understand how to manage the economics properly, the whole civilization will be destroyed, just like every Western civilization in history has been destroyed in the same way. So a very, very important thing to understand. Okay, let's move on then and talk a little bit more about Varnashram. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord Chaitanya is asking Ramananda Roy, please explain something to me about what the highest goal, what's the quote? The highest goal of Vedic culture, something like that, right? The highest. And Ramananda Roy begins with this sloka from the Vishnu Purana. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashram. There is no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in the institution of 4 Varnas and 4 Ashrams. And so there's a very long purport to that. Prabhupada explains this and the importance of it. Of course, it's important in historical Vedic culture, but it's also the present Vedic culture. In other words, the system of Varnashram Dharma basically was Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, that you do your duty according to religious principles, you acquire, so Dharma, you follow Dharma, Artha, economic development, Kama, you have some sense gratification, and then finally, at the end of life, you can focus on God and achieve either liberation or the heavenly planets. So that's been the system all along. However, right, in Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, at text 247, no, 239, Krishna says to Arjuna, so far I've explained to you the analytical principles of Sankhya philosophy. Now listen to the art of yoga, whereby one learns to live without fruitive result, something like this, right? where one can live without fruitive result. Now, this is a startling thing, right? Because that's what everybody was doing. Dharma, artha, fruitive activity. That was the recognized principle by which the whole culture operated. Now, Krishna is saying, oh, wait a minute, no, we're going to establish another system, because this is what Krishna does. Yada yada hi dharma sarglanar bhavati bhari. He comes to establish again the principles of religion. And Krishna this time is saying there's something beyond the Vedas. Those who, those who are attracted to the glittering results of Vedic activities, they're less intelligent. There's something beyond that. And then what does he say? The next thing, after he explains that, no, we're not going to follow the Vedas now. He says, Karmanya Vedakara se Mampaleshu Kadachana Malkarma Palahetur Buramate Sangost of Karmani. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but the results of your activity do not belong to you. Wait a minute. Yeah, Krishna says, yeah, we're gonna work without fruitive results. Okay. So then, how's that going to work? Because that's what everybody's doing. The whole culture, the whole society is organized that everybody gets some results of their activities, and then they use that to acquire their necessities. But if you're not entitled to the results, okay, well, what do you do with them? 3:9, right? Yajnartat karmanon yatra lokayam karma bandhanaha. Anybody? Help me out there. Anyway, Krishna says, work must be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise, this work binds you to the material world. So the whole point is, if we want the result of our activities, this is karma, right? This is sa-karma, karma yoga. I want the result of my activities. But one can give them up by offering the results to the supreme nishkama karma yoga, right? I'm then free from the result of that action. But then how's that going to work how's that going to work for everybody? Okay, you work. Let's take the example of a temple, which is interesting. We all go to temples all over the world, and everything works the same way. We go into that one particular building, and there we do everything as devotional service. We give everything to Krishna. We don't accept anything for our own account. Some prasadam is distributed, which we gladly accept. And then we reciprocate in whatever way we can by rendering service. And everything works quite nicely there. But when we leave that building, we go outside that building, then we go back to an entirely different culture, a culture of I and mine, right? In that building, everything belongs to Krishna. Outside of that building, I've got my bank account, you've got your bank account, I've got my car, you've got your car. But in that one building, everything belongs to Krishna. So, How's the culture work? Well, how about just expanding that one building to the size of a village? And then everything in that village would be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, as devotional service, the result offered to the Lord. Now, when we offer what we produce to the Lord, it's no longer ours. It's not that we get then to take it and sell it to somebody else. No, it's Krishna's. What's Krishna do? He distributes as prasadam. So say you're a cabinet maker. You make cabinets. You offer them to the deity. It's Krishna's now. And then it gets distributed to whoever needs it as Krishna prasadam. So this is Krishna describing in Bhagavad Gita basically a gift economy based on devotional service. Now, just to underscore how important this point is, you are not entitled to the fruits of action, right? We know the emphasis is given, right? Three times is emphasis. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva keli balam, kalona sevana sevana sevagattiranyata, right? 3 times for emphasis. How many times in Bhagavad Gita does Krishna state in one way or another that you are not entitled to the fruits of action? More than 25. Do we get it through our head? He says it again and again and again and again and again and again, practically in every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It doesn't belong to you. If you want to go back to Godhead, you don't claim it for yourself so that you become free from the karma. Now, what we have to do, the problem is we're spiritual schizophrenics because we go into that temple building and that we live a particular way. We have a particular philosophy of how things should work. And then when we leave, we go back to the demonic culture in which the demons have created for their sense gratification and for increasing their sense of I and mine. What we need to do is to expand the temple to the size of a village and do everything for Krishna. Now, there's a lot of gray hair here, so a lot of godbrothers, several of you are godbrothers. So you may remember in the very early days, we lived like that in the temple, right? Especially if you're a brahmachari, right? You didn't even own your own dhoti. You just picked your dhoti out of the clothes basket. So we did it. We could do it. And it can even be done with householders. It takes a little more organization. But what I'm saying is that we have to live our philosophy, okay? Now this becomes what? This is Daiva Varnashram, right? Varnashram, Prabhupada says, Varnashram is meant to turn a crude man into a pure devotee of the Lord. So Varnashram is not just for the Vaishnavas, right? But it's for everybody. And the crude men who are not yet, I call them not yet devotees, they live according to different principles because they still are laboring under the consciousness of I and mine. So gradually, the whole process of Varnashram is to gradually lift one up to becoming a Vaishnava. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he writes about this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'll just read a little bit from there. The path of karma consists of activities allotted to the 4 varnas and ashrams. It is also called Dharma or Trivargya Dharma, Artha Kama Dharma. Mahaprabhu is taught that while carrying out the maintenance of the body and family in a comfortable manner, the followers of karma also gain strength in regulative devotional practice following the principles of Vaidhi sadhana. In this way, those with too much attachment are advised to follow the rules of Varnashram and gradually qualify themselves for bhakti. And then continuing a little while later, as long as material desire is present in the heart, a person performing sadhana should follow the injunctions of Varnashrama. A gradual process for development is recommended and fruitful. First, a person should attain steadiness in good conduct by practicing Varnashram. This means doing their duty according to Varna and Ashram, which is another subject entirely. And then finally, he says, finally, with prema, a person reaches perfection. A person advances in qualification, as a person advances in qualification, the form and practice will necessarily change. So, Varnashram and Daiva Varnashram, they're taking place simultaneously, adjacent to each other. Maybe not adjacent in a contiguous means, but even interwoven. Everybody doing their duty and living according to their highest understanding of life. So in the Bhagavad Gita here in 325, Krishna is explaining that. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to the results, similarly the learned may also act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. Let not the wise disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attached to fruitive action. They should not be encouraged to refrain from work, but to engage in work in the spirit of devotion. And how do they do that? By the example of the Vaishnavas who are already doing that. They're free from the attachment to the result. So, this is my understanding that I've developed from studying this subject, that there's Varnashram and Daiva Varnashram are running parallel along with each other, side by side, or integrated even, with the Vaishnavas, right? Turn a crude man into a pure devotee of the Lord, or a Vaishnava. The Vaishnavas, following the principles of devotion, doing everything as devotional service for Krishna, surrendering the results of their activities as sacrifice, and then accepting what they need as a prasadam of the Lord. The others who are unable, who are still attached to their material conception of life, aham ameti, aham bogi, who are not able to give that up, they're encouraged to follow the regulative principles of Vaishnavism, right? Vaidhi sadhana, following the principles, and at the same time performing their duties according to Varna and Ashram. And gradually, as they do that, they will come to the stage of being pure Vaishnava. So this is my conclusion on this, and how things should work. How it will actually work in practice, we'll have to see. We have to figure that out. We have no example before us. But that's our task. That's what we are here to do. So I'm going to end there. I don't know how late it is, but okay. Yeah. So,
Well, thank you so much. So you're opening up for questions now?
Yes.
Okay. So persons can raise your hands at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a raised hand, and I can recognize you. Or you can also put things in the chat as well. If you have something that you'd like to submit, and you, for whatever reason, if you don't have a microphone, like I know there's someone without a mic, you can put your question in the chat also. So you have a hand up, and Purushottam Prabhu, go ahead and mute and present your question.
Hare Krishna, everyone. That was a really, really wonderful, insightful presentation. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
one of the very last words you mentioned was the word gradually, the gradual transition for folks to take up the process. So I'm just curious, you're talking about folks that may be coming from that crude place to, becoming a surrendered devotee. Any idea about the timeline? Obviously, for everyone, it's going to be different, but gradually could mean, within a week or two, or a month or two, or a year or two, or it could be within, several lifetimes. Any insight there for the greater ISKCON?
Well, we've all gone through that process ourselves, actually. Krishna, of course, is giving this in the chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, right? You begin with meditation. Better than meditation is surrendering some of your work. No, better in meditation, surrendering some of the results of your work for me. Better than that is working for me. Better than that is following bhakti yoga. So practically all of us have gone through that same process, right? We come to the temple. Oh no, first thing is cultivating knowledge, then meditation. So we get a book, we cultivating knowledge, we go to the temple, they teach us to chant, we learn to chant, we start chanting, then we're giving donation, we're giving up some of the result of our activity to Krishna, and then finally we want to move in the temple and become a regular devotee. So that's been the process for most of us, at least back in the day when, to be a devotee meant that you had to live in the temple. Of course, it's very different now. But it's, it's individual for everybody. And, I think, okay, let me give a hypothetical of what we're looking at here. And who these not yet devotees are. And we're in a time of great change with AI, right? They say 70% of the jobs, at least in America, are going to be going to be replaced by AI. Okay, what are those people going to do? How about that we help them figure out a way that they can work for themselves by growing their own food and living on the land? Prabhupada said, first Varna, then ashram. So we help them, we arrange, we facilitate their finding a way to live directly on the land, to produce for themselves. And these are people that are coming from where? From, modern America. What are, maybe they're, have some belief in God. Maybe they don't. So, how fast are they going to do that? Now, here's one way that I see that things can change very rapidly. Whoever's going to join this program, you leave your computers and your cell phones behind. There's no electronics here. Right? There's only face-to-face communication, personalism. Right? And in the evening entertainment is we come to the church or the temple or whatever, denomination you have there. And in one church, they're going to be reading the Bible, and in another place, they're going to be reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's your evening entertainment. And so everybody gets on the same page by following that arrangement. Can it be done? I don't know. Like I said, it's a hypothetical. This is what's going through my mind now. How are we going to establish Varnashram? Right? This is something that we have to do. And, we don't have the answers. And it's just like in our early days, right? Prabhupada said, go open a temple. You don't have the answers, just go and do it, right? You depend on Krishna. And Krishna comes through. So, we all, hopefully, not hopefully, we all will have a huge opportunity before us to teach others about Krishna consciousness. Look, with this whole AI thing and unemployment, all of their fallible soldiers are being destroyed, right? They take shelter of their job, their money, their position, their title, their beautiful car, whatever, right? All those fallible soldiers are going to be gone, and then what? They have no shelter. Help. A lot of people are turning to God now. You know, the Roman Catholic Church, the attendance is increased by 70% over the last year in America. Yeah. People are turning to God. And I think it's very much like the 60s because Gen Z, the generations coming of age now, just like we were in the 60s and 70s, they are looking for something meaningful. They see that this materialism, there is no materialism for them. There's no job. There's no future for them materially. What are they going to do? We have to find a way to capture these young people because right now in America, there is nothing, right? I'm sorry, our temples are not oriented for this. So we have to take advantage of this opportunity, these times that are before us, right? Live with times that are with thee and progress thee shall call. How are we going to do it? Let's put on our thinking caps and work together and get this done.
Great, thank you. Some other questions? Use the hand feature, raise hand feature at the bottom. I have just a couple of thoughts I'd like you to respond to. I was taking notes as you were going through. So you mentioned something, and this was important for me. In terms of the example, there was one that using the fruit vendor during Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. So during Krishna's Leela, there's also the example of Dwarka. And when I compare those two examples, Dwarka as a city and Vrindavan as a village, I see a difference. And then I don't see the example of, nor have I looked for it, but if you could comment on that, the difference between those, and that I don't see that system being used in a setting such as that, such as Dwarka.
Yeah. Okay, then the question that I present is, what is the purpose of a city? Let's not consider Dwarka. We understand that's a place for Krishna to provide palaces for 16,108 wives. And for that, he created a city. But otherwise, Krishna aside, what's the purpose of a city?
So you're asking questions?
Yeah. How do they develop?
People live. I can't say, that I know a sequence of things. People coming together from village to city. Imagine most modern cities were at one point, smaller, and they just, continue to grow with people.
Well, yeah.
But go ahead.
Actually, most cities, they developed. They didn't spontaneously appear, but they developed at the intersection of trade routes. So there was traders. They were going in caravans overland, and some are going this way and some are going that way. And there was an intersection, and they had to stop periodically because they're only traveling by horse or mule. So they stopped periodically, and in those intersections then, because they were there and they had wealth, they had substance, other people came to provide services for them, and in that way they obtained their own sustenance. So this is how cities developed. Cities didn't develop just because, let's have a city over here and put a lot of people together. But that's in the nation stages of development. Now, of course, later on, the great cities, right? New York or London and so on like that. This is basically the same thing. People are coming and arriving in those countries at those particular locations. And because of this influx of people, then cities develop. Now, if we're going to start over with Varnashram Dharma, are we going to start a city? And why would we do that? Or let's say, if we did that, why would we do that? Again, sticking to our principles of depending on the wealth of the land, right? And nature is so bountiful. I mean, if anybody who grows a garden, you realize how Krishna is so generous, right? You can't, if you spend a little time preparing the soil, but you can't possibly eat what it comes out of the earth. It's too much. You have to share it. There's a great Gene Jevons. He wrote a book called How to Grow More Food on Less Land Than You Ever Imagined Possible. And every year his group, they have a contest to see who can grow the most wheat on a 10 by 10 foot area. In other words, 100 square feet. Who can grow the most grain, most wheat? The record the last time I looked at that was 100 pounds. That's more than you can eat in a year, maybe even for a family, right? You don't need to be plowing 50 acres if you do it right. So again, my question is, why a city? I'll let you think about that. And I'll be happy to discuss it with you if you come up with something, give me a call. Let's talk about it.
So so let's see if there's some hand. I think I see a hand up. Hare Krishna Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna and Dinesh Prabhu. Thank you for some fascinating insights onto this practical topic. I'm not sure if my question is that broad, but as you were mentioning from the Gita about fruitive quality and attachment. Krishna comments on this or acknowledges or points out the problem there with attachment and greed and this kind of mentality there, and he's talking in the Vedic time. So what is the symbol of attachment and greed, and how does that happen like I heard in India previous to the British, there weren't really cities of consequence so much, maybe more, as you said, trade centers and that, but it seems like the Ladakh kind of scenario was more common. People lived together and, a bit more religious spirit or spiritual aspects. So just your feedback on that. What does it mean to be fruitive in a society that doesn't facilitate it?
Well, it depends on the development of the culture. In a nascent group, a nascent culture, everybody's, when it's just starting out, everybody has to wear a lot of hats because there's not enough people for having specialties. So you're growing your own food at the same time you're building your own house, or you're helping others build their houses, or maybe you're working with metal, or you're working with animals. So the men are doing a lot of different things. The women are perhaps making the clothes, growing the linen, carding it, weaving it. And so, there's no time for specialization or producing those trinkets that people think of in terms of sense gratification, right? It's bare bones, right? As the culture develops and becomes more prosperous. And of course, prosperity is based on agriculture. And prosperity is very simple. You plant one seed and you get back 50 or 100 or 1,000. That's prosperity. And that's the only real economic development there is in the world. Everything else is artificial. So it all depends on agriculture, the agricultural base, land and cow, not only the agriculture, but also the milk products from the cows, which the cow gives in generous supply by taking only grass. So these two things alone become the sustenance and the wealth of the entire culture. As the more and more people can be supported from that production, then they can get gradually into more and more specialization. So we have today, we have extremely specialized people doing extremely specialized tasks that nobody, would even think of studying, right? When I was in graduate school, I was studying some arcane thing that, a few material scientists, metallurgists would use, but impractical for everybody else. And the same thing, every field, what to speak of today, right? In modern university, they have all kinds of foolish majors you can have, lesbian and gay rights or some crazy thing like this. So it all depends on, the size of the group. As the group develops, then you can do more and more. Now, in traditional India, I remember being told, but I'm sorry, I can't quote the source, but they would intentionally keep the villages small for the simple reason that a human being can only relate to so many people. And when the village was growing bigger like that, then they would split off and they would create another village, a neighboring village. And in this way, everything remained personal. And I wish I could remember the source of that because I think it's a very important thing, but I can't. So the task of the Brahman is to understand how to guide society so that so that the needs are taken care of and everything is kept in its proper place. And the duty, of course, of the Kshatriyas is to, of course, they don't have a duty, they don't have to, but generally they should follow the instructions of the Brahmanas. So you have the Brahmanas determining what to do, and the Kshatriyas how to do, and then the Vaishyas doing, like that. But anyway, the point is that there should be a limit to the size of the community for the benefit of everybody, to keep everything in check and to keep the fever of sense gratification down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there's a lot of emphasis. There's a lot of the house, the skeleton of the house is there, but how to do that on a practical basis.
Purushottama Prabhu asked for a contact number and email address. Are you able to enter that in on your in Dineshwar?
Yeah, it's very simple. Dineshwar@gmail.com.
Did you
Like
get that?
like it's spelled on the screen, DH, and no SH, just S.
Okay, at
And
gmail.com.
phone number, I'm not too attentive to email these days.
Do you
So
want?
texting would be better. And I'll put my number in the chat box.
Please, because he was asking for that. Thank you. While you're typing, I have a quote from the Bhagavatam for you to respond to. This is
Yeah,
from the
go ahead.
4th canto, 21st chapter, 50th text, the purport. Prabhupada writes, is the Brahmanas should live by spreading knowledge and should therefore take contributions from their disciples, whereas a king should give protection to the citizens for their development to the highest standard of life, and he can therefore levy taxes from them. Businessmen or mercantile men, because they produce foodstuffs for the whole of society, can take a little profit from this, whereas the Sudras who cannot work as either Brahmanas, Kshatras, or Vaishyas should give service to the higher class of society and be provided by them with a supply of the necessities of life. So just take us through how do you would, I guess you would call it the gift economy, how that would.
Okay, what's being described here is the traditional culture, not a Daiva Varnashram. And is my understanding from my study is that there has not been any Daiva Varnashram previously. It's something new that we are tasked to develop based on Krishna's explanation of Bhagavad Gita, right? Of working without fruit of result, and the spiritual culture we've been given by Srila Prabhupada. And so with let's say, given this Siddhanta given to us by Srila Prabhupada, from within that, our task is to create the culture for future society. Well, at least we have to put in the foundation. And so, it's, I don't claim to have all the answers. Sorry. Don't look to me for that. I'm sketching out a vision as I understand Bhagavad Gita and Srila Prabhupada's instructions on Varnashram. So
Okay.
that's how I see it.
Okay. So let's see if any other hands up here. Any other
Come on,
questions?
man.
I mean,
Please ask your questions.
I
No dumb questions.
do see a hand up. Oh, yes.
Kalia Prabhu.
Go ahead.
You're muted, Prabhu.
You're muted. Yes, you're muted. Yeah.
That's a fairly bold statement, Daneshwara Prabhu Maharaj, that this hasn't been demonstrated, Daivi Varnashram. Are you for?
Okay, well, if I'm wrong, correct me. That's how I see the past. There's been plain vanilla Varnashram, right?
There's been what? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining in Chaitanya Shikshamrita about Varnashram and the purpose of Varnashram, he's saying the purpose of Varnashram is to elevate one to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. Now, in my understanding, at least in my association with Indians here in America and in India, they're all firmly fixed in Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. I mean, with a few exceptions, even those that come to the temple, right? They'll come to the temple because our way of worship is similar to what they knew back home, but they're not taking up Prabhupada's Siddhanta as far as I've seen. And maybe Arjun, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because there's not many. Actually, of course, in India there must be, but I was a temple president in Vancouver for some time, and there was the Indian population of the Indian devotees coming to the temple were growing more and more in those years. There was still probably at that time a good 50 Westerners in the temple, which I don't think you'll find in some of the temples now. If you go to Detroit or, perhaps Dallas or Houston, will you find 50 Westerners, 50 white people? I don't think so. So anyway, but my experience has been that they don't take up Srila Prabhupada's Siddhanta. They're very dutiful, right? They support our activities. They support our temples because why? That's Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. That's their duty. So God bless them. That's wonderful. We love that. But I have one friend, one Indian friend who's actually imbibed Srila Prabhupada's Siddhanta. And I asked him one time, I asked him, please teach me how to preach to the Indians. And his reply was, I don't. He said, I teach the children, not the adults. Because the adults, they're fixed in that, they're very fixed in their culture, which is wonderful, right? I think it's wonderful because Americans, we don't have any culture at all. So to see Indians so very firmly fixed in their culture, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, wonderful. But it's not Daiva Varnashram, in my opinion.
Would sort of Vrindavan village be a bit of a previous before the money? What we can understand about Vrindavan village, would that be a bit more of a blueprint for what we're looking for? Or
I don't know.
Or...
I'm not familiar with that. I mean, the only Vrindavan I know is when I first got there in 1976. I don't know Vrindavan before that.
Well, Krishna book is there, and
oh, you mean that far back?
Well, no, I wasn't thinking that far back, but I'm just extrapolating. Well, maybe we have the descriptions of the cow herders there with their lives based on, very spiritual, elevated platform.
Maybe. I don't know. Why don't you study it and let's discuss it and try to hammer it out together.
Well, I live on a farm here. I don't know where we're going. Really,
so,
a lot of Indian support.
Yeah, it takes a lot of study because to try to understand the history and the culture, the greater culture, like I've been describing, we're a subculture of a greater culture that we live in, which is demonic. But from out of that, we have to carve a toehold for a spiritual culture. If any of you would like to continue this discussion with me, please contact me, and I'd love to do this. We could discuss this frequently because I see, like I was saying earlier, I see a serious, wonderful opportunity in front of us for actually getting this going. And because all these people that are going to be losing their job or are losing their job already, I mean, people cannot even afford a house anymore. There's so many people that are on the ropes in America. I don't know about where you might live, but in the States, it's bad already, and it's only going to get worse. So this is an opportunity because, in my experience of trying to do this in the past, everybody takes the path of least resistance, which is usually money. Okay, I get money and I can survive. And we know how that culture works. But if you're talking about establishing a whole new culture, there's so many unknowns and how that's going to work. And it's pioneering work and it's hard. So people don't do that. But people aren't going to have a choice. And the question is, okay, how can we make it happen? And I think it's time. I believe it should be done, and that's why we should do it.
Any other questions? Arjuna, Acharya, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes. Sorry, I don't know how to raise my electronic hand. Excuse me for that. But Yeah, I'm listening to this presentation by Dineshwar Prabhu, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is amazing. I've never thought that, one aspect, we talk about four aspects of the Grihastha ashram, and one of it is Artha. I didn't think about Artha in such depth as when I'm listening to you now. And it's making so much of sense. I didn't think that, to reset everything, because Varnashrama Dharma means resetting everything. So I didn't think that resetting everything requires that much detail. But detail in terms of introducing simplicity in our life. And then I also have this marketing background, and when we want to sell a product to someone, first identify your customer, qualify your customer. So I'm looking at the idea that you come up with, and I look at it as a product. And yes, we need to sell this product, and who do we sell it to? So I'm looking at the youth. They're not going to buy it because as youth, we attracted to something that's already set up, it's functional, and we want to get into that and just be part of that. Whereas when I look at the Vanaprast ashram, one of the aspects of Vanaprast ashram compared to Grihastha, Vanaprast, we drop two things. One is Artha and the other is Kama. So if we have to drop Artha, how do we drop Artha? And I'm seeing that you are actually magnifying that and bringing it out very nicely. But are we ready to do that? Are we ready to let go? And what we need is collective minds and to come together and hear more from you on these presentations, because to listen to you for an hour, I think it's unfair, and it's not enough education for ourselves in terms of convincing us that this is the route to go. Although I am convinced that it's a route to go, because for me, I use Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I say that if we're progressing, it's an upward direction. If we are retrogressing, it's a downward direction. And society is retrogressing into this way of impersonalism, into this way of economics, where we want to live a separatist life. We don't realize that we're so caught up in this trap. But for us to move up in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to get out of this trap. And how do we get out? And this is where, when I look at you explain the barter system and the advantages of the barter system, and that's something that I personally need to get deep into my thought patterns and ideas, and try to come up with creative and ways of creating a culture or a society. And also I like what you mentioned earlier on about growing a village, but not too big. And this is what we see with the Bhakti Vriksha program as well. It follows the same pattern, where once it gets big, then you divide it. And this is how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed us this, that a tree grows and then it branches off. And we need to follow the same mindset in trying to establish Varnashrama Dharma. But establishing Varnashrama Dharma, I see that your target audience, or our target, I shouldn't say your target audience, I should say our target audience, as the Vanapras. And that's something that Vaninath Prabhu and I are going to be discussing more about next week. as to how to implement this and how to create this big factory where we have different areas of expertise and each one contributing to that. And certainly this aspect of economics is a very, very important and integral part of establishing Varnashrama Dharma. A lot of youth will not be attracted to this. But if we create the facility and we have a facility that's working, then that would be the attraction. And we talk about Krishna being all attractive. We need to also create system that will be attractive. Thank you. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
Yeah, I just want to reply to that point before I forget about the youth being attracted. Context is extremely important. Okay. In the context of modern society, when people have so many options, no, it's not attractive. The context is going to change. Okay. AI. Now, what's your country? Where are you living now?
I'm in South Africa.
South Africa. Okay. So every place in the world is different. Okay. Now in America, this AI thing is like, it's a juggernaut. It's coming like a steam train, right? And it's going to just knock this country off of its foundations. How it's going to work, I don't know. I mean, one company, Amazon, the biggest retailer in the world, they're going to lay off 500,000 people. The social contract in America is broken. Okay, it's social contract, right? That means the workers, they do their part and they get taken care of by their betters. Okay, that's been the social contract throughout history. That's broken now because there's two economies. There's the money economy and the goods economy. Okay, everybody, all the wealthy people, they're all focused on the money economy and making money because they can live with money. But their thinking is extremely short-sighted because if there's no goods economy, then their money is useless. Amazon's going to lay off 500,000 people, 500,000 people. And then who's going to buy their products? Everybody's going to lay off everybody. There's no jobs. So how's the economy going to function? The goods economy won't be able to function. And then it means the money economy is worthless. So context is everything. Now, what you have to be doing is looking at what's coming down the road. Most people, they see, 1-2 weeks in the future. As we go up the Varnas, from Shudra to Vaishya to Kshatriya to Brahmana, there's increasing ability, increasing responsibility, increasing capacity to work with other people, and increasing ability to work with a longer time horizon. Most people, their time horizon is 2-3 weeks in advance. That's it. They can't think beyond that. It's not within their power. Okay, their gunas don't work like that. That's what the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas are supposed to be doing. They're looking and seeing what's coming, and how are we going to prepare for that? Because they have their duty is to take care of the praja, the people. Not just, we're not thinking about ourselves. We have to be thinking about the whole world. So what's coming? You have to look and see. You have to, keep your ear to the road and, spend some time on YouTube and see what people are complaining about or what the trends are, or however you do it in South Africa. I don't know. Probably the same everywhere. It's all online now. Or ask ChatGPT.
Yeah. No, we in South Africa, we into sense gratification.
Anyway, yeah, and like I said, I'd like to keep in touch with any of you who are interested in pursuing this in a serious way. And
Question, did you put your number in you said you were going to put it in chat. Did you do that?
yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry.
did I hit the go button? Let me see. Maybe I put it there.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
I
I
see
did.
it. I'm sorry. I see it now. Thank you. I just wanted, since you mentioned that, I wanted to make sure that person's.
Oh yeah, it should be a 1 in front of that because we have an international audience here. 1 for America. Right? 1248.
Any other questions? For a moment here. So, Maharaj,
So thank you for
so much.
staying with me for so long, and I hope you found it edifying. Please do watch those videos that I recommended. Right, learning from Ladakh, the economics of happiness, and if you can get a hold of Bhakti Vikash's Glimpses of Traditional Indian Life. Now, my book, Spiritual Economics, please read that. That's available on the database at the 2019 release. And I think they removed it at the later release. I'm not sure why, because I'm a bad boy in ISKCON. So, but anyway, it was on the 2019 release. But if you don't find it and you want a copy, let me know. I'll send you a PDF. But please do read it because it's what I do in that book. I trace out the political economic history from the indigenous cultures of the world all the way through to postmodern society. And in terms of sattva, rajas, and tamas, or the economics of goodness, the economics of passion, and the economics of ignorance. As Kali Yuga rolls on, and Kali Yuga degradation increases, this is reflected in the way we handle our economics. And so that's how I'm explaining that book. And it's a valuable book for learning about the application of the gunas, because I'm using economics as a field of study for the gunas. But the gunas can be applied to any human activity, art, medicine, law, you name it. Any human activity, the gunas, and you can trace this same progression from sattva to rajas to tamas, particularly in law. No. Oh, everything, art, music, everything. So yeah, I won't keep, I can carry on and on. But yeah, if some of you like to get together, like you were saying, Arjun, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, it's needed. We got a big job, and we got to put our heads together to get this done. So I'll shut up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj, so much for your time, and thank you for everyone for your kind attention. And I'll be sending out email when this replay is available so that you can go back through it. It's a lot, so that you can go back through and see that. So thank you so much. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.